You've probably heard stories about angels, about divine beings descending from heaven, but there is one story that not everyone knows, a story that holds dangerous secrets and deep controversy. This story was removed from most of the Bibles we know today, but today we're going to explore one of the oldest texts, an account of the fallen angels, the Watchers, divine beings who descended to earth and shared forbidden knowledge with humanity. So why was a story about angels banned and removed from the official scriptures? What lies behind this knowledge that it had to be hidden from us? Could it be that God sought to protect humanity from the temptation of power and control? Or is there something more dangerous about these secrets, something that could lead us down a path beyond our control? To answer these questions, we must look back to an ancient text known as the Book of Enoch, a significant manuscript preserved within the Ethiopian Orthodox tradition. This is a story not only about the fallen angels, but it also raises profound questions about humanity, the knowledge we might acquire and use, and yet which carries an immense unseen danger. The Watchers, these angels who once resided in heaven, descended to earth and shared with humankind the very secrets they believed would help humanity advance and master nature. This knowledge offered us power. We could command technology, understand the cosmos, and even control our own fate. But the price we paid was steep: corruption, chaos, and even destruction. When these secrets were revealed, we realized that we were not yet mature enough to understand their consequences. Why was there such a prohibition on this knowledge? Why did God keep these insights hidden? Knowledge that could help humankind progress and evolve. Was he afraid that we would surpass his control? Or is there something about these secrets that we are simply not ready to comprehend? Join us as we journey through these mysterious pages of history to uncover the truth behind the stories that have been concealed for millennia. And if you're intrigued by these ancient mysteries, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Miraculous Bible Stories channel. Together, we will uncover untold stories, stories that might change the way you view the world around you. The knowledge shared by these angels didn't just alter the course of human history, it marked a pivotal turning point. In the Book of Enoch, we encounter a group of angels known as the Watchers. Their mission was to observe and guide humanity, but instead of simply watching, they took action. Led by Semyaza, one of their leaders, they made a groundbreaking decision. They descended from heaven to earth with a plan that would forever change the destiny of humankind. Driven by desire and defiance, they did more than just observe. They took human wives, crossing the boundaries that God had set to protect both humanity and the angels themselves. This was just the beginning. As they integrated into human life, these fallen angels began sharing forbidden knowledge, secrets about the universe and nature that were never meant to be known. So what exactly were these dangerous teachings, and why were they so perilous? In the Book of Enoch, these forbidden secrets are laid out in detail. The Watchers taught humanity the art of metallurgy, helping people craft weapons of war and destruction. They revealed the secrets of magic and sorcery, showing how to control both natural and supernatural forces. They even introduced humanity to astronomy, unveiling hidden truths about the stars, secrets that were meant to remain concealed. While each individual piece of knowledge could seem beneficial, together they formed a tool of corruption. We see the effects of this knowledge clearly. Before these secrets were shared, humanity lived simply, guided by God's wisdom. But after acquiring these forbidden teachings, people began to believe they could master nature, control their fate, and live without divine guidance. They grew arrogant, believing they were on par with divine wisdom and no longer needed to heed God's direction. This corruption is echoed in Genesis 6:5, which states, "The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time." The forbidden knowledge of the Watchers had taken root, spreading sin and moral decay across the earth. By sharing these secrets, the Watchers granted humanity control over powers that should have remained hidden, and this control came at a terrible cost. Now, humanity was on the path to self-destruction, torn apart by war, sorcery, and pride. The laws God had put in place to protect and guide humankind were now ignored, and the delicate balance between heaven and earth began to break down. But the real question remains: what was it about these teachings that God deemed so dangerous? These secrets could change not only the history of humanity, but also its future. Why would God, the creator of everything, choose to limit certain knowledge for humanity? In the Book of Enoch, the forbidden knowledge that the fallen angels share with mankind is not just ordinary knowledge. It's a type of wisdom that gives humanity a false sense of control over nature, destiny, and even each other. God did not want humanity to possess this power because he knew it would inevitably lead to pride, corruption, and ultimately self-destruction. One of the most dangerous pieces of knowledge shared by the Watchers was the art of creating weapons and engaging in warfare. By teaching humanity how to forge metal and craft tools of violence, the Watchers opened a gateway to destruction. Before their arrival, humanity lived in peace and simplicity, relying on God for guidance and sustenance. But once mankind gained the ability to create weapons, conflict began to rise. This newfound power brought a false sense of security and dominance, making people believe they could control life and death. This was a crucial turning point because when humans thought they could control the universe, they began to distance themselves from God's guidance. Another forbidden knowledge the Watchers imparted was the arts of sorcery, magic, and the manipulation of the natural world. This knowledge tempted humanity to seek mystical powers instead of trusting in God. By attempting to control the unseen forces of the world, people became captivated by illusions of power, believing they could bend reality to their will. This knowledge opened the door to witchcraft, divination, and contact with dark spiritual forces, things God had expressly forbidden, as seen in Deuteronomy 18:10-12. "Let no one be found among you who sacrifices their son or daughter in the fire, who practices divination or sorcery, interprets omens, engages in witchcraft, or casts spells. Anyone who does these things is detestable to the Lord." God knew that seeking power through forbidden methods would only lead humanity further away from him, pulling them into a world of deceit and spiritual danger. The Watchers not only taught magic, but also shared the secrets of astrology, teaching humans how to read the stars and attempt to control their own fate. While studying the stars could reveal the wonders of God's creation, using them to predict and manipulate outcomes distorts God's intent. This shifted humanity's trust from the Creator to the cosmos. This is seen in Isaiah 47:13-14, where God rebukes those who turn to the stars for guidance. "Let your astrologers come forward, those stargazers who make predictions month by month. Let them save you from what is coming upon you. Surely they are like stubble, the fire will burn them up." The knowledge the Watchers shared encouraged humanity to seek self-reliance rather than God's guidance, creating a spiritual arrogance that led them away from divine wisdom and love. God, in his wisdom, knew that certain knowledge could only cause harm if humanity was not mature enough or spiritually prepared to handle it. The forbidden teachings of the Watchers brought power without responsibility, knowledge without wisdom, and influence without humility. God didn't withhold this knowledge to control humanity, but to protect them from their own hubris and the unforeseen consequences that would arise. God's desire was always for humanity to depend on him, to find true fulfillment in his guidance and love, rather than in the false security that comes from forbidden power. Yet, once humanity tasted power, they became greedy and divided, setting them on a path of self-destruction. The forbidden knowledge, shared by the Watchers, not only expanded human understanding, but also dramatically altered how humanity interacted with each other and the natural world. This knowledge acted like a toxin, seeping into every aspect of society, corrupting hearts and fueling desires for power, domination, and control. Instead of using wisdom to build peace, humanity used it as a tool for self-destruction. One of the most devastating consequences of this knowledge was the rise of endless violence. Once humanity learned the art of weaponry, they no longer saw each other as brothers and sisters, but as enemies and rivals, equipped with swords, shields, and war tools. Individuals and tribes were swept up in the desire to conquer and control. The Book of Enoch describes how bloodshed increased, leading to a world where peace became a distant memory. In Genesis 6:1-12, we see a reflection of this destruction. And the earth was corrupt in the sight of God, and the earth was filled with violence. God saw that the earth was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way upon the earth. Humanity had turned knowledge of creation into a tool of destruction, and the earth itself suffered the consequences. But the impact of this forbidden knowledge did not stop at physical violence. Teachings about magic and sorcery lured humanity into the temptation of supernatural power. People became obsessed with controlling forces they didn't fully understand, leading to widespread deceit, manipulation, and spiritual decay. Instead of seeking wisdom and guidance from God, humans sought answers from dark powers, opening doors to forces that drew them further from God. The Book of Enoch illustrates how these practices brought about profound moral and spiritual decay. Humanity began to accept witchcraft and divination, trusting in spells and magic to alter reality as they wished. As people delved deeper into these practices, their sense of humility and dependence on God faded, replaced by arrogance and self-interest. They fell into the trap of spiritual darkness, which clouded their understanding and increasingly pulled them away from the light of God. Astrology, another teaching shared by the Watchers, gave humanity the illusion that they could control their fate by reading the stars. Instead of trusting in God's plan, humanity began to rely on the movements of celestial bodies, believing their destiny was in the hands of the universe rather than the Creator. This shift led to a fatalistic culture where people thought they could manipulate their own future, ignoring the guidance and power of God. Humanity gradually placed more trust in their own abilities than in the Creator's guidance. In Proverbs 16:18 we are warned, "Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall." In their pursuit of control, humanity unwittingly set itself on the path of self-destruction, blind to the wisdom and protection found in God's commandments. This corrupted knowledge created a world where violence, deceit, and pride flourished. The Book of Enoch paints a vivid picture of how this forbidden knowledge did not lead to enlightenment, but instead to moral decay and societal collapse. Humanity, lost in the maze of power and pride, drifted further from God, the Creator, and the true source of wisdom. However, God would not allow this downfall to continue without intervention. The truth about sin and the consequences of forbidden knowledge would not remain unaddressed, and correction was destined to come. As humanity delved deeper into chaos, corruption, and violence under the influence of forbidden knowledge, God recognized that the only way to restore balance was through a sacred act of purification. According to the Book of Enoch, God's heart was deeply saddened by the state of humanity, who had become entangled in wickedness and rebellion, far removed from the innocence with which he had originally created them. The world was filled with violence, spiritual corruption, and pride, all direct consequences of the forbidden knowledge shared by the fallen angels. In Genesis 6:5-6, we read about God's sorrow. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. The Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. This verse reflects the profound corruption of humanity, a world lost, governed by powers they could neither understand nor control. God's response to this situation was both decisive and merciful. His judgment was not merely punitive, but also redemptive. He decided upon the flood, an event that would not only destroy but also purify the earth, providing humanity the opportunity to return to a state of innocence and dependence upon him. However, the Book of Enoch adds a deeper layer of meaning, explaining that God's judgment was not solely directed at humanity, but also at the fallen angels who had caused this corruption. In the Book of Enoch, God commissions the archangels Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel to carry out this divine judgment. Each archangel had a specific role in dealing with the consequences of the actions of the watchers. For example, Archangel Michael was tasked with binding the fallen angels in chains and casting them into the abyss, where they would await their final judgment. This action was not only a punishment for their rebellion, but also a means of containing the evil they had unleashed upon the world. Jude 6 also reflects the fate of the fallen angels, and the angels who did not keep their proper domain but left their own abode, he has reserved in everlasting chains under darkness for the judgment of the great day. Through this divine intervention, God placed limits on the spiritual corruption that had spread across the earth, ensuring that the influence of the watchers would not last forever. The flood was not only an act of destruction, but also a sacred recreation, an opportunity for humanity to return to a state of purity and live in dependence upon God's guidance. In protecting Noah and his family, God demonstrated his commitment to a righteous lineage, ensuring that humanity would continue but no longer be influenced by the forbidden knowledge that had led them to ruin. Genesis 6:9 describes Noah as a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, a testament to the purity that God desired to restore on earth. Through the flood, God not only purified the physical world, but also re-established the boundaries between the spiritual world and the earthly realm, boundaries that the watchers had violated. This recreation allowed humanity a fresh start, free from the corrupting knowledge that had nearly brought about their destruction. The flood serves as a reminder that, although God's judgment is always just, his mercy still endures. Through this act, he preserved a righteous lineage and charted a path towards salvation, offering humanity the opportunity to return to living according to his guidance and love. The story of the Watchers and the forbidden knowledge they shared is not just an ancient tale, but a timeless warning that echoes through generations. In the Book of Enoch, the fall of the Watchers and the ensuing corruption of humanity serve as a powerful reminder of the dangers of pride, unchecked ambition, and the allure of knowledge that was never meant to belong to us. These lessons are not tied to a specific era, but resonate even today, much like they did in the time of Noah. The forbidden knowledge passed down by the Watchers, knowledge of technology, warfare, magic, and the power to control nature, may seem like relics of an ancient world, but humanity still faces similar temptations. We continue to be driven by a desire to control, dominate, and trust in our own understanding, rather than in God's wisdom. The Bible gives us a clear message in Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. This call to trust in God's wisdom over our own has never been more crucial. The story of the Watchers also reminds us that there are boundaries we are not meant to cross. This is not because God wants to restrict us, but because he wants to protect us. The pursuit of knowledge for personal gain, especially when it involves manipulating or controlling the natural and spiritual realms, leads to a loss of humility and reverence for the Creator. When humanity loses humility, it becomes vulnerable to the consequences of holding power without wisdom or responsibility. The imprisonment of the watchers, as described in the Book of Enoch and reflected in Jude 1:6, shows that even beings of great power must be held accountable to God's order. Their rebellion and the devastating impact they had on humanity stand as a lasting testimony to God's justice and the boundaries He has set to protect us. When we step outside of these boundaries, we expose ourselves to spiritual and moral dangers that can damage both our souls and the fabric of society. Today, the legacy of the Watchers calls us to reflect on our relationship with knowledge, power, and faith. As we continue to pursue progress and understanding, we are reminded of the importance of aligning our efforts with God's will. The lessons from the Watchers urge us to seek wisdom, humility, and trust in God, rather than being swept away by the forces of ambition and pride. In Matthew 11:25, Jesus praised God, saying, "I thank you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and learned and revealed them to little children." This reminds us that true wisdom is often found in trust and humility before God, not in the relentless pursuit of hidden power or control over creation. As we conclude this journey through the Book of Enoch, let us remember the lessons from the Watchers and the forbidden knowledge they imparted. Their story shows us that God's boundaries are not meant to restrict us, but to protect us and draw us closer to Him. May we choose to walk by faith, recognizing that true wisdom does not come from hidden knowledge, but from a genuine relationship with our Creator. Thank you for joining us in exploring the Book of Enoch and the mysterious tale of the Watchers. If this video has deepened your understanding of the hidden depths of ancient texts, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Miraculous Bible Stories channel. We invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. What does the story of forbidden knowledge and divine boundaries mean to you?